Emma Saunders sat at the edge of the park, the warm afternoon sun casting long shadows over the quiet suburban streets. Her eyes followed the movement of the leaves in the breeze, the rhythmic fluttering of the branches providing her with a rare moment of peace. Beside her, Max, her loyal K9 companion, lay on the ground, his ears perked up as he kept an eye on the surroundings. Emma adjusted her position in her wheelchair, the small motorized wheels beneath her humbling slightly as she shifted. Despite her disability, she had grown used to this chair over the years, learning how to maneuver it with ease. She would never allow herself to feel weak, especially not in front of others. The sound of engines revving cut through the calm air, and Emma glanced up to see a group of bikers speeding down the road toward her. The leader, a tall figure with a leather jacket emblazoned with a skull logo, was the first to spot her. Jackson. Emma's stomach sank. She knew trouble was coming. "Well, well, well," Jackson called out, his voice oozing with mockery. "Look who's out here enjoying the sunshine. The princess in the chair." The other bikers, including Tyler, Drew, and Evan, slowed their bikes, all of them wearing grins that made Emma's skin crawl. Max raised his head, sensing the shift in energy, his body tense. Emma swallowed hard but kept her voice steady. "I'm not your target, Jackson. Keep moving." Jackson smirked, pulling his bike to a stop a few feet away from her. "Ah, come on, sweetheart," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Don't tell me you're too good to have a little fun. It's not every day we see someone like you out in the open." The rest of the gang gathered around, their laughter growing louder, like a wolf pack closing in on prey. Emma could feel her face flush with heat, her pulse quickening. She had dealt with bullies before, but this felt different. Jackson and his gang had a way of getting under her skin, making her feel small. But Max was her protector. And she would not let anyone break her spirit. "Don't come any closer," Emma warned, her voice firm despite the knot forming in her stomach. Jackson ignored her, stepping closer with a mocking tilt of his head. "What's the dog gonna do? Bark at me?" Max growled, his eyes locked onto Jackson, his body vibrating with tension. Emma could feel the protective energy radiating off him, but she also knew that Max, although trained to defend, was not one to start a fight unless it was absolutely necessary. "You'd better watch what you say," Emma said, her voice steady now, a slight edge of warning in it. Jackson laughed, taking a step forward. "Or what? What's your dog gonna do? You gonna make him bite me? Because I'm sure he's not as tough as he looks." Suddenly, Jackson took a step toward Max, snapping his fingers as if to taunt the dog. "Hey, mutt. Come here and show me what you got." Max didn't move immediately. But Emma could feel his tension, his muscles coiling, ready to spring into action. The quiet growl that emitted from Max's throat was enough to send a shiver down Emma's spine. "Max, stop," Emma whispered, but Jackson wasn't done yet. With a sudden, mocking movement, Jackson bent down, extending his hand toward Max as if to touch him. "Come on, little dog. Let's see if you're really as tough as you think you are." The words had barely left his lips before Max's instincts took over. In a flash, the K9 lunged forward, his jaws snapping shut around Jackson's wrist, pulling him to the ground with a sharp yelp. "Max!" Emma shouted, her voice a mix of fear and command. The bikers froze, staring in shock at the unexpected turn of events. Max growled menacingly as he held Jackson in his powerful grip, not letting go. The rest of the gang stood still, unsure of what to do next. "Get him off me!" Jackson screamed, struggling beneath Max's firm hold. "Max, stop!" Emma's voice was firm now, more commanding. She could feel her heart racing, but she knew she had to stay in control. With a final, fierce growl, Max released Jackson's arm, stepping back but not taking his eyes off him. The bikers, stunned and visibly rattled, backed away slowly. "Didn't expect that, did you?" Emma said, her voice calm but cutting. She looked directly at Jackson, who was nursing his wrist, still in shock. "Don't ever underestimate him again." Jackson struggled to his feet, his expression darkening. "You little." "Don't even think about it," Emma said sharply, her hand gripping the wheels of her chair. "Leave now. Before I make you." For a moment, there was silence. Then, Jackson sneered, his pride taking the blow. "This isn't over, Princess," he spat. "We'll be back." Emma watched them ride away, her heart still pounding in her chest. Max stood by her side, watching the bikers leave with a keen sense of protection. "Good boy," Emma whispered, gently patting his head. But inside, a storm was brewing. This encounter was far from over. Emma knew it, and now, more than ever, she understood the gravity of what was to come. The bikers would return, and they would bring more trouble with them. But she wasn't going to back down. Not now. Not ever. The bikers, still recovering from the shock of Max's sudden aggression, dispersed as quickly as they had appeared. The roar of their motorcycles faded into the distance, but Emma remained in the same spot, her fingers still trembling on the wheels of her chair. Max stood by her side, his muscles taut as if ready to spring into action again at the slightest provocation. "Max. You did great," Emma whispered, her voice tinged with a mix of awe and concern. The dog's ears perked up at the sound of her voice, and he gave a soft whine, nuzzling her hand for reassurance. Emma's heart still raced, her thoughts swirling. She had never imagined a situation like this would escalate so quickly. One minute, she was just trying to enjoy her afternoon, and the next, she was faced with a group of hostile bikers and a very real threat to her safety. But Max had been there, by her side, and he had acted without hesitation. His loyalty was unshakable. The quiet of the park seemed to stretch on, and Emma finally took a deep breath, pushing herself forward in her chair. Max followed closely, his eyes scanning the surroundings with an alertness that made her feel safe. But deep down, Emma knew this wasn't the end. She had seen the look in Jackson's eyes before he left. The anger. The humiliation. He wasn't the type of person to let things slide, and she was certain he would return, probably with more bikers in tow. She just hoped she could be ready for whatever came next. The next few days passed uneventfully, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that the bikers were watching her. Every time she ventured out into the neighborhood or the park, she felt a sense of unease creeping over her, like invisible eyes were following her every move. Max seemed to sense it too, staying extra close to her and constantly looking around, as if waiting for trouble to appear. Then, on the 5th day after the confrontation, Emma's fears were confirmed. She was out for a walk near the park again, taking Max for his daily exercise, when she heard the familiar roar of motorcycles. Her stomach twisted, and her grip tightened on the wheels of her chair. Max growled softly, his hackles raised as the sound grew louder. Without warning, Jackson and his gang appeared from around the corner, their bikes revving aggressively. Emma's heart sank as she saw Jackson leading the group, his face twisted into a sneer. Well, look who's out again," Jackson said, his voice dripping with malice. "Thought you could scare us off with your dog, huh? Think again, Princess." This time, he wasn't alone. Behind him, Tyler, Drew, and Evan all rode in close formation, each one wearing a look of disdain. But what caught Emma's attention the most was the way Jackson was smirking, like he had something up his sleeve. His eyes locked onto hers, and she could see the wheels turning in his head. Max immediately began to growl, sensing the threat before Emma even had a chance to react. She turned to face him, trying to calm him down, but there was no hiding the tension in the air. "Get out of here, Jackson," Emma said, her voice shaking slightly but still strong. "You're not welcome." Jackson's laugh echoed through the street, a low, mocking sound. "Not welcome? Princess, I think you've got that backward. You see, I'm not leaving until I teach you and your dog a little lesson." At that moment, Emma realized what was happening. This wasn't just about intimidation anymore. Jackson wasn't just angry, he was out for revenge. He had already been humiliated in front of his gang, and now he wanted to prove a point. He was looking for a way to break her, to make her feel powerless once again. "I'll tell you what," Jackson continued, his voice a taunt. "How about we see if your dog's got any more fight in him? I'm not going anywhere until I know who's really in charge here." Jackson's words were like a signal. Without warning, one of the gang members, Drew, revved his bike and roared toward Max. The dog immediately snapped into action, barking fiercely as he moved to protect Emma. But Jackson wasn't done yet. He nodded toward Tyler, who gave a nod of his own, stepping off his bike and walking toward Emma, his eyes filled with a strange determination. "What are you doing?" Emma asked, her voice rising. "Stay back." Tyler ignored her and crouched down, slowly reaching out to Max, trying to provoke the dog. Max snarled, but Emma could see that Tyler wasn't afraid. In fact, he seemed almost too calm. Before she could stop him, Tyler reached for Max's collar, yanking it hard. The dog growled louder, his teeth bared. Emma's heart skipped a beat as the situation seemed to spiral further out of control. "Enough!" Emma cried, her voice breaking. She reached for her phone, ready to call for help, but her fingers trembled too much to dial properly. That's when Tyler's demeanor shifted. He straightened up, glancing back at Jackson, his eyes clouded with something Emma couldn't quite place. "Jackson, stop," Tyler said quietly, almost as though he was speaking to a different person altogether. "This is too much." Jackson, who had been enjoying the power he thought he had over Emma and Max, froze. For a moment, the gang was silent, the tension hanging in the air. "Too much?" Jackson sneered, looking at Tyler as if he'd just lost his mind. "What are you, a coward now?" Tyler took a step back, shaking his head. "No. I'm not a coward. But this is wrong. You're crossing a line." Emma, still struggling to comprehend what was happening, looked from Jackson to Tyler. She had no idea what was going on between them, but one thing was certain, this wasn't just a random act of revenge anymore. It was something personal. Something deeper. And Emma was about to find out just how far Jackson was willing to go to win this twisted game. The tension in the air was thick as Tyler's words lingered, heavy and unsettling. The bikers had gone quiet for a few moments, their faces shifting from cocky arrogance to something more uncertain. Jackson stood, staring at Tyler with eyes full of confusion and suspicion, while the rest of the gang seemed to take a step back, unsure of what was about to happen. Emma watched them, her heart still pounding in her chest. Max, sensing the unease, remained at her side, his eyes never leaving the bikers. He was still on edge, but Emma could feel him trying to gauge whether or not the situation was about to escalate further. Jackson finally broke the silence, his voice low but full of authority. "Tyler," he said, his words carrying an edge, "what the hell are you talking about? We're not here to make friends. We're here to teach her a lesson. You remember what she did to me, right?" Tyler's gaze dropped to the ground for a moment before he looked back at Jackson, shaking his head. "I remember, all right," he said, his voice quieter. "But this isn't the way." Emma's mind raced. The situation had shifted, but she wasn't sure which direction it was going. Was Tyler backing down? Or was he just trying to save face in front of the others? Either way, she knew she couldn't trust any of them, especially not Jackson, who was clearly angrier than ever. "Enough," Emma said, her voice cutting through the tension. She tried to sound confident, even though her insides were a mess of nerves. "You've made your point. But I'm not scared of you. None of you." Jackson sneered at her, his lips curling into a vicious grin. "You think you can just talk your way out of this, huh? We don't play by your rules, princess." With a sudden motion, he spun around and kicked the front wheel of Emma's chair, causing her to jerk forward, nearly losing her balance. Max immediately lunged toward Jackson, but Emma held him back with a firm grip. "No," she shouted, looking into Max's eyes. "Not yet." The gang laughed, sensing the fear they had provoked, but Emma was no longer afraid. She wasn't going to let them see how vulnerable she was, not now. Tyler, who had been watching from the sidelines, stepped forward again. "Jackson, I told you." But before he could finish, Jackson raised his hand, silencing him. "We do this my way," Jackson growled. "You can either get on board or get out of my way." Tyler hesitated, his eyes darting between Jackson and Emma. Emma could see the internal conflict on his face. He wanted to do the right thing, but Jackson's hold on him was far stronger than Emma had anticipated. Emma's anger flared. "What do you want from me?" she spat, her words sharp. "You came here looking for a fight, and now you're just making yourselves look pathetic." Jackson's grin widened as he stepped closer. "You think I'm pathetic?" he asked, his voice low and menacing. "You think I'm scared of a little girl in a wheelchair? Let's see how brave you really are." Before Emma could react, Jackson grabbed the back of her wheelchair, yanking it harshly. Max barked furiously, but Emma held him back once more, her fingers tightening on the armrests. She could feel the anger bubbling inside her, her pulse quickening with every passing second. But this time, Emma wasn't going to let them break her. She wasn't going to let Jackson or his gang make her feel small. "Let go of me," she demanded, her voice steady despite the rage boiling inside her. Jackson smirked. "Make me." Without thinking, Emma slammed her foot against the footrest of her chair, using the force to push herself back. The chair jerked, catching Jackson off guard. He stumbled backward, momentarily losing his grip. "That's more like it," Emma muttered under her breath. She could see the surprise in Jackson's eyes, but it was quickly replaced by fury. He stepped forward, intent on making Emma pay for her defiance. But before he could reach her, Tyler stepped between them, holding up his hands. "Enough, Jackson," he shouted, his voice louder now, filled with authority. "This isn't worth it." Jackson paused, his eyes narrowing as he looked at Tyler. "What are you doing?" he hissed. "Are you backing out?" Tyler's expression was serious, almost pained. "I'm not backing out. I'm done with this. This isn't who I am anymore." For a moment, there was a tense silence as Jackson glared at Tyler, his fists clenched. The other gang members exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of what to do next. It was clear that Tyler wasn't backing down, but it was also clear that Jackson wasn't about to let him go without a fight. "Fine," Jackson spat, his voice dripping with disdain. "But don't expect me to forget this." He turned on his heel, signaling for the rest of the gang to follow. As they mounted their bikes, the tension remained thick in the air, and Emma's heart continued to race. But just before they drove off, Jackson turned back to her with a sneer. "You're not safe, princess," he called out, his voice cold and full of malice. "You'll never be safe." With that, the bikers sped off, their engines roaring as they disappeared into the distance. Emma let out a long breath, her body shaking with the adrenaline of the confrontation. Max, sensing her tension, trotted over to her and gently nudged her hand. She reached down to pet him, trying to calm herself. Tyler stood at a distance, watching her silently. Emma could feel his gaze, but she wasn't sure what to make of him anymore. He had been the source of the gang's troubles, but now, he seemed to be conflicted. "Why did you help me?" Emma asked quietly, her voice still shaky from the encounter. "You're one of them." Tyler took a step forward, looking down at the ground. "I was," he admitted, his voice low. "But I'm not anymore. Jackson's not the person I thought he was." Emma studied him carefully, trying to decide if she could trust him. She wasn't ready to forgive him yet, but something about his sincerity made her reconsider. "You're still one of them," she said softly, but there was no malice in her voice. "You can't just walk away from that." Tyler nodded, looking guilty. "I know. I'm sorry for what I did. But if you'll let me, I'd like to make it right." Emma didn't respond immediately. She needed time to process everything that had happened. But one thing was clear, this was far from over. The gang wasn't finished with her yet, and whatever role Tyler had played in all of this, Emma knew that things were about to get even more complicated. The days following the confrontation were long and tense. Emma found herself constantly on edge, never quite sure when Jackson and his gang would return. Max seemed to sense her unease, staying close to her side at all times, his sharp eyes scanning their surroundings with a wariness Emma had come to rely on. Tyler had not approached her again after that day in the park, and Emma had mixed feelings about it. Part of her was still angry at him for being part of the gang in the first place, but another part of her was curious. There was something about his sudden change of heart that didn't sit right with her. She couldn't figure out what had happened to him, and why he had chosen to step in during that final moment. It wasn't until a week later, when Emma had almost started to feel like things were returning to normal, that Tyler unexpectedly showed up at her door. Max growled softly when the doorbell rang, but Emma quickly hushed him, her curiosity piqued. She wheeled herself to the door, cautiously peering through the peephole. It was Tyler. With a deep breath, Emma opened the door, keeping a safe distance between them. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice guarded. Tyler stood there, looking more somber than she had ever seen him. He seemed different, his usual cocky demeanor was replaced with a seriousness that made Emma nervous. I need to talk to you," Tyler said quietly, looking past Emma to where Max was standing in the hallway, eyeing him with distrust. "It's important. It's about Jackson. And about something I didn't want to tell you before." Emma crossed her arms over her chest, not letting her guard down. "What could you possibly want to tell me now? After everything?" Tyler looked down, his expression filled with regret. "I know I can't just expect you to trust me. And I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I need you to know something about your dad." Emma froze at the mention of her father. "What about him?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Her heart began to pound as memories of her father flashed in her mind. He had passed away when she was just 10, and the pain of losing him was something she had never fully come to terms with. Tyler took a step closer, glancing nervously at Max, who had moved closer to Emma's side. "It's not something I want to say, but I owe you the truth. Your father wasn't just some ordinary guy. He was involved in some serious things. Things that Jackson is tied to." Emma's mind raced as she tried to process what Tyler was saying. "What do you mean, involved in serious things? What does Jackson have to do with any of this?" Tyler hesitated, his eyes flickering with discomfort. "Your father, he worked with people who were in business with Jackson. I didn't know all the details, but he was trying to keep you safe from it. He was trying to protect you from getting dragged into the mess." Emma felt a cold chill run down her spine. "What kind of business? Why didn't anyone tell me about this?" Tyler stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I think your father was trying to shield you from the truth. He didn't want you to know about the kind of people he was dealing with. The same kind of people Jackson's gang is involved with. But it didn't work. They know who you are. And they know you're vulnerable now." Emma could hardly breathe. The world she had known, the memories of her father that had always been so warm and comforting, suddenly felt like a lie. "My dad was involved with criminals? He never said anything about this. Why would he keep it from me?" Tyler's face hardened with a mix of guilt and anger. "He didn't want you to get involved. He didn't want you to be in danger. But now, it's too late. Jackson knows you're his daughter, and he's not going to stop until he gets what he wants." "Gets what he wants?" Emma repeated, her voice trembling. "What does that even mean? What does he want from me?" Tyler hesitated, looking like he wanted to say more but wasn't sure if he should. Finally, he let out a deep sigh. I don't know exactly. But Jackson's not just about the bike gang anymore. He's mixed up in something much bigger. And I think he's going to try and use you as leverage to get to your father's connections. He won't stop until he has control over whatever your father left behind. Emma felt like the ground was slipping out from under her. Her father, the man she had loved and admired, had been involved in something dangerous, and now, she was caught in the middle of it. The bikers, Jackson, and his gang were just a part of it, but the real danger ran deeper than she could have imagined. Tyler's voice softened. I'm sorry, Emma. I didn't know how to tell you this. But I think you need to be prepared. Jackson won't give up. And I'm not sure how much longer I can stay out of it. But I won't let him hurt you. Emma's mind was a whirl of emotions. She didn't know who to trust anymore. Tyler had been part of the gang, he had been with Jackson. And yet, here he was, warning her about the very people he had once sided with. Was he really trying to help her now, or was there an ulterior motive? Why should I trust you? She asked, her voice shaking but defiant. You were part of the gang. You were part of all of this. Tyler nodded solemnly. I know. And I can't take back what I did. But I can try to make it right. Jackson isn't the person he once was. And I'm not the person I was either. I just want to make sure you're safe. For a long moment, Emma said nothing. Her mind raced, her thoughts colliding in a mess of fear, anger, and confusion. She had always believed that her life was simple, her father had died, and she had been left to pick up the pieces. But now, everything was crumbling around her. The life she had known was a facade, and she was being pulled into a world she didn't understand. Finally, she spoke, her voice steady. I don't know if I can trust you. But I'll consider what you've said. I need to think. Tyler nodded, his expression filled with regret. I understand. Just know that I'm here. If you need help, I'll do whatever I can. Emma closed the door quietly, her mind in turmoil. Max sat by her side, his eyes full of concern as she wheeled back toward the living room. She was no longer just a girl in a wheelchair. She was caught in a web of lies, betrayal, and danger, and she wasn't sure how to escape. But one thing was clear, she wasn't going to let Jackson win. Not now. Not ever. The air was thick with tension as Emma sat alone in her living room, her mind racing through the bombshell Tyler had dropped on her. Her father, the man she had once seen as a hero, had been tangled in a world of criminals and dangerous alliances. And now, somehow, Jackson and his gang were involved in all of it. The weight of that truth pressed down on her chest, but Emma refused to let it crush her. Max, who had been by her side through every confrontation, sat quietly at her feet, his head resting on his paws. He seemed to sense her inner turmoil, his amber eyes watching her intently. Emma gave him a soft pat on the head, trying to steady herself. She couldn't be afraid. She couldn't let Jackson win. Not after everything that had happened. Max, Emma whispered, looking down at her loyal companion, we're not going to let them get away with this, are we? Max let out a soft whine, as if in agreement. Emma stood up, her body stiff with determination. She had spent enough time hiding from the truth. It was time to face it head-on. She needed to know what Jackson wanted and why he was so hell-bent on making her his target. But more than that, she needed to take control of her own fate. The following morning, after a restless night of tossing and turning, Emma received a message from an unexpected source, Tyler. He had told her that he wanted to help, but Emma was still unsure about his intentions. However, something about the sincerity in his message made her decide to meet with him. She couldn't afford to be naive, but she couldn't afford to turn away any help either. Not when Jackson and his gang were after her. Max walked alongside Emma as she wheeled her way to the park where Tyler had asked to meet. She kept a tight grip on her chair's wheels, her senses alert for any sign of danger. She had learned the hard way that she couldn't trust appearances anymore. When Emma arrived at the park, she saw Tyler standing near a bench, nervously scanning the surroundings. He spotted her immediately and waved her over. "Hey," Tyler said, his voice hesitant. "Thanks for meeting me." Emma gave him a curt nod, her gaze hard. "I'm not here to make friends, Tyler. Just tell me what you know." Tyler exhaled sharply, looking down at the ground. "I know this isn't easy to hear, but Jackson, he's deeper into something than I thought. It's not just about control or revenge anymore. There's a bigger picture. He's after something your father left behind." Emma's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean? What's he after?" Tyler hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "I don't know all the details, but I do know that your father was involved in some shady dealings, things that are connected to the gang, to Jackson's business." Emma clenched her jaw. "So, all of this, everything that's happening, is because of my dad? He left something behind, and Jackson wants it?" Tyler nodded. "Exactly. And he's not going to stop until he gets it. That's why I'm here. I'm trying to stop him, but I can't do it alone." Emma's mind reeled, the pieces of the puzzle slowly coming together. Her father had been trying to protect her from something dangerous, something that Jackson wanted. And now, she was caught in the middle of it all. "You want me to help you stop him?" Emma asked, her voice barely audible. "Why? After everything you've done, why should I trust you?" Tyler took a step closer, his voice filled with sincerity. "Because I know what Jackson is capable of, and I know how dangerous this is. He's not the same guy I used to ride with. And I owe it to you to make it right." Emma took a deep breath, considering his words. She wasn't ready to forgive him, but the truth was, she didn't have the luxury of time. If what Tyler said was true, she had to act quickly. "All right," she said finally, her tone resolute. "But this doesn't mean I trust you. You'll have to prove that to me." Tyler nodded, his expression grim. "I understand. But I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust. I'm not backing out this time." Later that evening, Tyler and Emma hatched a plan to confront Jackson once and for all. They knew the gang would be in the area, and they figured this was their chance to catch them off guard. Tyler had a few contacts who were willing to help, and with Max by her side, Emma was determined to face whatever came next. As night fell, Emma wheeled her way to the old warehouse on the outskirts of town, where she had learned Jackson and his gang were hiding out. She had a plan to bait them, using herself as the target, knowing that Jackson wouldn't resist a chance to confront her. But she also knew that she had to be careful. One wrong move, and the situation could spiral out of control. Tyler stayed close behind her, his presence a quiet reassurance, though Emma couldn't fully shake the nagging doubt in the back of her mind. When they reached the warehouse, Max growled lowly, his ears alert to any sound. The hairs on the back of Emma's neck stood up as they approached the building. The dim light from the street lamp cast eerie shadows across the cracked pavement, adding to the tension. "Are you ready?" Tyler asked in a hushed tone, glancing at Emma. Emma nodded, her heart pounding. "Let's do it." They moved toward the entrance, where a group of bikers stood in the shadows, watching them. Emma's breath caught in her throat as she recognized Jackson standing at the front, his arms crossed and a smug expression on his face. "You think you can take me down, Emma?" Jackson sneered. "You and your little dog? You're in way over your head." But Emma wasn't afraid anymore. She had no intention of backing down. "You're the one who's in over your head, Jackson," she said, her voice steady but filled with determination. "This ends tonight." With that, the final confrontation began. The sound of motorcycles roaring to life, the clash of steel against steel, and the growl of Max as he lunged into action created a whirlwind of chaos. But Emma was ready. With Tyler by her side and Max protecting her, they fought back with everything they had. In the end, it wasn't brute force that won the battle, it was Emma's strength, her will to fight for what was right, and her refusal to let fear control her. Jackson, caught off guard by the unexpected resistance, was eventually subdued. His gang, confused and disoriented, began to retreat. Tyler stood next to Emma, breathing heavily. "It's over," he said, his voice quiet but filled with relief. Emma looked at him, a strange sense of closure washing over her. "Maybe for now. But there's still a lot more to uncover." Max barked triumphantly beside her, and for the first time in weeks, Emma felt a sense of peace settle in her chest. The battle was over, but the war was far from finished. Whatever secrets her father had left behind, Emma knew she was ready to face them, because, with Max by her side, she was no longer just the girl in the wheelchair. She was a warrior. As Emma wheeled herself down the path toward the unknown, she knew that the road ahead would not be easy. But she had learned one undeniable truth: her strength didn't come from her legs. It came from her heart. And with that, she would continue to fight, for herself, for Max, and for the memory of her father. And no one, not Jackson, nor any of his followers, could take that away. The story is about inner strength, courage, and the ability to face challenges. It follows a young girl in a wheelchair and her loyal K9 dog. Despite facing mockery, isolation, and threats from a ruthless biker gang, the girl does not give up. Instead, she fights to protect herself and the values she holds dear. This story is a testament to the power of resilience and determination, even when faced with adversity. The story conveys a profound message about never giving up, even when the world around us may doubt us or make us feel weak. Everyone can overcome challenges if they believe in themselves and are not afraid to face their fears. Furthermore, genuine friendship and mutual protection can help us overcome difficulties that might seem impossible to conquer. Thank you for watching this story. Please show your support by liking the video, commenting, and sharing your thoughts below. Each interaction you make is a great motivator for us to continue creating more meaningful stories. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss an exciting story in the future. Let's share and spread these positive messages with everyone. Once again, we sincerely thank you for watching this video. We hope these stories inspire and give you faith in your own life. See you in the next videos. Wishing you a wonderful and energetic day.